Well, we've reached the point of no return. Hello and welcome everyone, it is me, the Lover, also known as the Power to Duelist, back for you with a follow-up to my video wanting to revolutionize Morphtronics. Have I done that? Probably not, but the list I'm about to show you has been working pretty well for me and is definitely something interesting I would implore you guys to take a look at and maybe give a shot yourself before you call me a dumbass in the comments. To address the elephant in the room that you probably already have spotted, this list is currently not running machine duplication. There's a couple of reasons for that, especially because I think the deck definitely got a lot of good in-archetype extenders with the new support that enabled you to assemble pretty formidable boards just with, the in-archetype stuff you have and make you less dependent on drawing a unsearchable 3-off. But I think we'll get into like more in-depth reasons while I'm running this down. Starting off, the main deck here is, of course, 3 copies of Morphtronic Cellphone. I wouldn't cut this card even if I tried. To be able to, grabbing those Morphtronics from the deck, depending on if you reveal those after rolling a die, just an incredibly sick effect that enables you to very easily set up your boards. But one nice thing that Cellphone has going for himself in this build is that he's a non-tuner, enabling you to synchro climb into your big bosses with the likes of Scopen and Remoten. Joining Cellphone at the forefront of this deck here is the infamous Morphtronic Telephone. Has been wreaking all kinds of havoc in the FTK variant that has already topped an event. Telephone just being able to recur itself basically if you get a second one into rotation by activating the attack position effect, because you can't roll lower than a 1, and level 1 Morphtronic happens to be Telephone, but it also happens to be Cellphone, and this is one of the ways you are trying to not only recur Telephone in this deck for some additional link material, but also recur Cellphone to continue playing. You are most likely getting like 2 to 3 of your important Morphtronics into rotation, and then more working with your graveyard in your combos. Still, joining his brothers is Morphtronic Smartphone. This time-wise second in line of the infamous Phone Trio, just a great special summonable level 1 tuner that is able to simulate the Cellphone, roll a die, reveal cards from the top of your deck, and add you those important Morphtronic cards, specifically Converter and Repair Unit to your hand, but also any Morphtronic will do if you already have a Repair Unit in hand, so you have something to discard. Great card, honestly. Morphtronic Scopen is in a bit of a weird position almost. I also cut out the level 4, which leaves Scopen without attack position targets, but turns Scopen into a very flexible tuner that can either be a 3 or a 4. Funnily enough, can also be a 4 if you pull it off of Crystron Harker Fibrax, because Harker Fibrax only prevents the monster to activate its effects, and since Scopen's defense position effect is a continuous effect, you are able to pull a level 4 tuner out of your deck with Hulk, which enables some pretty cool synchro plays if you still have a Cellphone left on your field. Morphtronic Remoten, still great here to, an easy way to basically get to any, if not most of the Morphtronics you want, when you want them. Banishing a level 1 to either grab a Telephone for the follow-up or a Smartphone for further extensions just is a great use for this card, and Remoten is still an absolutely amazing piece of the deck. Holy Spirit in the Discords was expecting me to be back on this card, and I am indeed back on the Gizmak Naganaki, but I am not cutting Gadget Gamer in favor for this guy. I am adding 2 copies here to have more ways to get to either Cellphone or Telephone. This definitely leaves you open to Ash on your normal summon, but in general, which combo line in this deck doesn't, to be fair. But Gizmak Naganaki is still a great card, especially considering that if you open this with Convert Unit, you are basically guaranteed getting to one of your big fonts, as you can either go ahead and fire the Convert Unit, maybe get an Ash out of your opponent that way, and if your opponent decides to Ash the Convert Unit, you are able to tribute the Naganaki and still get to like a Cellphone or Telephone, which is kind of nice. Nothing probably too practical, but I think it is neat that you have additional ways to get to Cellphone and Telephone, because if you can do that, you are pretty much good to go. Another incredible combo enabler in this deck is Gadget Gamer or Normal Summon. This will add a level 1 machine from your deck to your hand, which is basically every single one of the fonts, be it cell phone, telephone, or smartphone. In most cases, you will be grabbing telephone. If you already have one, you'll be grabbing cell phone. And if you are lucky enough to already have these two in hand, you can also grab smartphone for some further extension potential. Gadget Gamer's second effect, also pretty damn crazy. You contribute it to special summon a Morphtronic from your hand and special a Gadget Hauler from the deck. That is why we're playing this one fat brick here to enable some pretty sick plays, especially since Gadget Gamer turns into a 1-card Power Tool Dragon. Playing an awful lot of one-off spells, 1-for-1, Foolish Burial for some more access to your fonts. Caught by the Grave is a defensive option, and Monster Reborn just as a great generic extender alongside powerful archetype extender like extenders like Junk Box and Morphtronic Convert Unit. In terms of equip spell lineup, I'm playing Life Extreme, Raptor, Supreme Magic Blade, and United We stand for my braver equip spells. And in all honesty, I'm almost considering cutting United We stand for the Metal Silver Armor. I think currently only Nostalgia is holding me to this card, but I already added Life Extreme instead of the Archfiend Staff, because the possibility to turn Braver into a quick effect pop as like kind of an alternative to the negate in case you need a pop is just kind of nice, because a pop is still a great piece of interaction that can really screw over some decks. 3 Reaper unit here as kind of another searchable extender, be it either of smartphone or the one of Power Tool Dragon you are still rocking, and joining the main deck, I guess, in place of the machine duplications is a playset of Infinite Impermanence. This could be any hand trap you want. I went with Imperm as it plays around triple tactics, and also Imperm I feel like is one of those hand traps that has a lot of good applications, be it going first or second, be it just at blanking an opponent's monster during their combo, be it blanking an opponent's negate after their combo. So I really like this card. In terms of extra deck, not a whole lot of surprises. Power Tool Dragon and his brave counterpart are here. Crystal Wing for some early Nibiru Insulation. Daunt Dragster, not so much as a consistent end board piece, but just as an option you can go into with Formula Synchron and one of your 5s. Out of which the second one I think deserves a mention. Super Heavy Samurai Swordmaster Musashi is able to on Synchro Summon, add a machine monster from your graveyard back to your hand. But if you have a spell or trap in your graveyard, you are not able to summon that monster or activate its effects for the rest of the turn. If this does sound a bit confusing to you, let me raise you this. You are able to put back Crystron Halka Fibrax with this effect, which is pretty darn sweet. And if anything, if you find yourself fortunate enough to not have any spells in graveyard, just adding back a Morphtronic can be very helpful in your combo, or just grabbing back any Morphtronic to have a discard for Reaper unit can also prove very vital in some cases. So Musashi has definitely helped out in one case, in a good bit of cases, honestly, I do have to say. And alone the possibility to recycle Halka Fibrax, which is such an insanely powerful card in this deck, makes this a very good inclusion, I think. The rest of the extra deck is also pretty standard. An Armory Arm for some equip synergy, an Earphone to have a ready level 4 to go into Net Beast, and Formula Synchron because it's incredibly easy to make and probably the best thing you could be summoning off Hulk. For the link lineup, playing an Underworld Goddess, this came in incredibly clutch during the weekend when my friend playing Blackwings decided to make full Armor Master and Ultimate Falcon, as this was already able to out one of his towers, and the rest of my deck outed the second one. A Boros Sword Dragon, this could also be an access code talker. You are most likely looking for a generic link closer in this slot, as if you are able to kind of recycle Hulk, and then still have telephone access on the follow-up, or just have telephone access on the follow-up, you are easily able to assemble one of the big link closers and then maybe push for a game with that. Telephone's just kind of crazy on the follow-up, honestly. An Appaloosa as one of your endboard pieces, a Nightmare Phoenix as kind of a flex slot. If you are playing Access Code Talker instead of Boros Sword, this could be your Nightmare Unicorn for some added removal. Crystron Halka Fireback, just a crazy strong extender in the deck, and a Linkuriboh closing off the extra deck. While I do believe that cutting machine duplication is something very controversial, And I think at this point a disclaimer of not being mean in the comments is a bit late, but I would definitely advise on giving this deck a shot and maybe doing a few test hands before you call me an idiot for it. Because we're going to look at a few of those, and I'll maybe show you guys what the deck can do, even if you're not opening Machine Dupe. Swapping for this one, the Dueling book, as you are able to kind of, I think, view better how combos are played out. This is a fairly average hand, using the Foolish Burial here to dump a Cellphone, which kind of shows why Foolish Burial is so good in the deck nowadays, as you're able to normal summon that Telephone, grab back the Cellphone here, which we are going to trigger, rolling a fat 6, which is kind of crazy, and enables us to find that smartphone there off the top, putting the rest of these cards quickly back into the deck to proceed to play by using the smartphone here to dig for some more extenders. Finding a convert unit, which I will fat finger and put on top of my deck instead of into my hand, but gladly we banished a second one, so we are able to go off there. Shuffling the deck here, firing that convert unit, which will be used to put, I think, the Telephone back on top. Yes, indeed, and we will trigger that Cellphone. Dice roll really doesn't matter here, so rolling a 2 really doesn't hurt us, since we know that that Telephone is on top, which we summon. And to get some additional value out of this, we'll link off the Cellphone, summon a Linkuriboh, and trigger the Telephone before we will summon back the Cellphone and commit for a 4-material Apollousa. Not quite insulating us against Nibiru, but still very nice nonetheless. With 3 cards left in hand, we are feeling very good. Triggering the Cellphone, rolling another really big hit with the 5 here, hitting the Remoten, which is also able to kind of give us some great extension potential, as we're able to trigger Remoten, banish a level 1. The smartphone here was basically near useless, as it was summoned by Cellphone's effect, so we don't really have access to that. Banishing the second Cellphone from the graveyard here, so we still have one in rotation for the smartphone, digging for a repair unit, which I clumsily put back on top, but I'll just draw it, shuffle, and we are good to go again. Making Nat Beast here, another very powerful import beast the deck has access to. Going for repair unit, pitching Telephone, triggering Telephone here. Being able to summon Telephone, triggering Telephone again, summoning back Cellphone. We don't want to clog up our board too much because we are kind of in the closing steps. I think the 1 here is a very big hit because I do hit the scope in here, which I am summoning in defense, and putting it alongside Cellphone into a Musashi. Not leaving the Musashi here for, you know, some fancy hard recycling, but I'm able to grab back a Cellphone for the follow-up turn and putting a Haka Fabrics on board, which will be able to summon a Scopen in defense, making Power Tool Braver Dragon with the Musashi. Equipping all 3 from the deck, or like the 2 I still have in deck, and the Life Extreme from hand. What are we looking at? We are looking at a 4-material Apollousa, which is already pretty impressive. A few decks already scooped to that. Nat Beast is a natural enemy of Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, as it is able to basically shut down 99% of combo decks under the sun. And Power Tool Braver Dragon is still a big chunky boy with some decent protection that is either a targeted negate or a quick effect pop due to Life Extreme. We have also the ability to tag out this Haka Fabrics for a Formula Synchron on the follow-up, which can potentially draw us into a hand trap, funnily enough, and also gives us the opportunity, if our opponent found an out to our Naturia Beast, to use the Formula Synchron we summon off this with the Naturia Beast to make FA Dawn Dragster, which puts us at a solid 3 interruptions on board, but we also have the ability for a 4th one in case one gets dealt with. We are working with 4 cards on the follow-up and Monster Reborn, Cellphone, and I guess 2 blank cards, since we're drawing 1 of the Formula Synchron and 1 for our next turn, are pretty decent all around. So I think with that out of the way, we'll look at another test hand. Call this another show of force, as I've kind of saved the best for last. An opening hand including Gadget Gamer. A very crazy card, if I am being completely honest. Which we will be seeing in action just right now. We will proceed to normal summon that Gadget Gamer, and as previously mentioned, since we already have a Cellphone in hand here, we will go ahead and add Telephone here, triggering the second effect of the Gadget Gamer here, putting that Telephone onto the board and grabbing a Gadget Holo from the deck, triggering Gadget Holo before we do anything, putting that Cellphone in the grave, which turns Telephone live to summon back Cellphone before we commit for a Power Tool Dragon, which we will be using to put a Reaper unit from our deck into our grip, which is a great guaranteed extender to have in this case. Triggering the South one here, we've not gone through a lot of our Morphtronic names, so we're able to pretty easily hit one here, even if our result is pretty fucking optimal, if I do say so myself. But yeah, putting all these back, triggering the telephone once, not lose out on value for the second one, before we make Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon with telephone and Power Tool Dragon. Triggering the telephone here, grabbing back the telephone from the graveyard, making Halka Fibrax, and summoning a Remoten off of that. Triggering the telephone again to summon a telephone from the graveyard, triggering the telephone again to summon a cell phone from the graveyard. This is kind of crazy, yeah. Making a Linkuribo here before committing to anything else. Triggering the Linkuribo here because that's a misclick before we make a 3-material Apollosa. Able to trigger the cell phone here because we've not done that, but we had to clear up our board before that. And Smartphone is probably one of the best hits we could have gotten right there. We'll be making an earphone here with the Remoten and the cell phone, now that both are kind of spent. Triggering the Smartphone here, not hitting anything is not a big deal. We are looking pretty decent when it comes to our end board. Using one of the combat units we had in hand now finally to put a cell phone onto the field, stacking that Smartphone to the top, using cell phone here to roll a 1. Unfortunate, it is what it is, but grabbing back the Smartphone. Rolling here for the Smartphone with a very fat 6. And I think that Scopen is looking mighty fine, which we'll be picking up to have another piece of extension. We'll be taking Smartphone and Earphone here, making Naturia Beast, which is already a great endboard piece, and then we'll be triggering Reaper unit, pitching this Scopen to summon back Telephone, trigger Telephone to summon Telephone, link, or rather sync the Telephone and the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon into Braver, fat fingering that to spell and trap again before we equip the rest, triggering Telephone once more here for a fat 6, which we'll be using for a Remoten, which will be used to banish a level 1 from our graveyard, as previously mentioned, to get a Telephone into our grip for the Crackback. Turning a Remoten and a cell phone here into a Armory Arm, and I think you all know where this is going. We are making super heavy Samurai Swordmaster Musashi here to recycle Crystron Halka Fibrax. Equipping the Earphone and quickly clearing the Reaper unit I forgot to put into the graveyard when I synced off that one Telephone before we end on our board. We have once again made 3 disruptions, sitting on Apollosa High and Mighty, a Power to a Braver Dragon, and Naturia Beast with an incredible amount of follow-up, and we were still able to put back Hulk, which more easily enables us to make a big link closer, along the lines of Boros Sword Dragon or Access Code Talker, depending on your budget on the follow-up. So yeah, I think with that, we'll quickly reconvene with the deck and I'll give you guys some closing thoughts before I go to the pyre. As I think I already mentioned at the start, I don't think this is the most optimal way to play Morphtronics, but it currently is a very interesting list that I think feels really good. In just all honesty, it feels consistent. It is able to get to your key cards like cell phone and telephone rather easily, as you are in total playing 6 copies of each, considering that you're playing 3 native ones, 2 Gizmek Naganakis, and a 1-for-1, which gives you crazy good access to those incredibly powerful key pieces the deck has access to. It definitely loses out on kind of the high end because you are not going to replace the high end combo boards that Machine Duplication provides you. But it definitely gains some flexibility. You are able to kind of be a bit smarter with your resources. You're not, you know, going all in, trying to make the biggest board you can, and have some abilities to prepare for a follow-up, as you've seen in those 2 test stands. I think I was able to add a telephone for the follow-up in both cases, or I think a cell phone in one and a telephone in the other, which is something very nice, and also able to show off the power of the Musashi here to recycle Halka Fibrax for a possible follow-up. Is this the best way to play Morphtronics? No. Do I deserve to get kind of thrown out of town for this and drowned like a witch? I don't know. I think that's your guys' decision to make. But overall, I would definitely highly recommend giving this a shot before you burn me at the stake. But with all that out of the way, I'll thank you guys very much for watching and see you guys again next time. But until then, goodbye.